Hey guys, Slaughter Magic here, and it looks like another card is unexpectedly spiked in price. This one is much older than, well, one day. So the first was Fraying Sanity. It went from $1.99 to, depending upon where you look, $5 to $7. It's not just the price, it's a lot of vendors that are not exactly small are sold out of the card, like completely sold out. That usually means, by the way, that if you have some and you want to sell them to some vendor on a buy list, you should probably do it right now because the offers are generous. I mean, nobody wants to be the vendor where, oh, we have hyper competitive prices and everything's great. And also we don't have that one card because people like to get their whole deck in one place. If you can't do that, you're going to a different vendor. Now that's super true on TCG Player and eBay, although TCG has some kind of weird script to like lower your, I don't know, shipping or something. It just covers for the fact that you're getting it from 6 people and getting ripped off on shipping regardless. They just make it look like less of a thing, in my opinion. So Fraying Sanity, I thought, okay, any kind of modern mill deck, which, I mean, a mill deck went 8-0 at some GP a while ago, and everybody was like, oh, mill's back, mill's back. No, it's like one guy. I mean, come on. But mill has always been a thing. It will always be a thing, unfortunately. I hate it. I hate all alternate win conditions almost universally. It appears so does everybody else, and the hate against mill is real. That's why ever since Sphinx's tutelage, they really just said, screw it, we're done with this, because people just passionately hate it. Well, then out of nowhere, with almost no card support whatsoever, you've got Fraying Sanity. So what the hell's going on? Well, I thought, okay, it's one card. You really do need like 5 good mill cards to make a mill deck work in standard, so it's obviously a price spike based solely on demand for modern. Well, it turns out it might be both, because there has been a price spike so unusual. I mean, this card was like $1. Like, it was so low, I still had some after buy listing my entire binder like 5 times. Nobody wanted this card. I'm, of course, talking about Startled Awake and, on the flip side, Persistent Nightmare. Now, the real Persistent Nightmare is that they just will not stop printing 2-sided cards, which ruin draft and ruin half the people's sleeves. I mean, then you gotta cram extra cards in your deck box, because now you need extra room because your deck actually contains the proxy cards. But then you've gotta sleeve the actual card because the actual card's a mythic, and God, it's a persistent nightmare. That's exactly what I would say it is. Not even messing around, double-sided cards almost ruined the entire game. So many people walked away from it and just said, screw it. It was shocking that they ever brought this back. So, mini rant over, but for 4 cost as a sorcery, target opponent puts the top 13 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. You know, they could just use the term there instead of his or her. They really overuse it. It's almost like borderline poor writing. Anyway, the only reason this card didn't immediately take off is because it says target opponent, not target player. If you could, for 4 mana, mill an Eldrazi Titan into your graveyard, and then use one of, I believe, 4 different cards to bring it back, into play, I should say, not to hand, holy crap. Like, this would be virtually impossible to whiff on. I was so mad when I had 4 copies of this all set, 1 in foil, by the way, and, just couldn't put it in my El Zombly deck because it was on color. That really sucked. So now the interesting thing is, it's a sorcery, you cast it, it goes to your graveyard. Okay, so for 5, put Startled Awake from your graveyard onto the battlefield transformed, but only as a sorcery, because otherwise that would be, you know, really powerful. Then again, it only comes out as a 1/1, so you would bring it out flipped, and becomes a 1/1 creature, a nightmare. That artwork is so flippin' cool. I absolutely love everything about it, except that it looks like he's wearing t-shirts and jeans. It's kind of weird, but he's got a knife and he's looking back all like, oh, I'm going to stab this lady. It's so creepy. I just love this artwork. By the way, in foil, it looks so sick, but somebody really wanted it and I really wanted their cards, and I traded away my foil edition, and now I am just kicking myself. It's probably like 15 bucks plus. It looked freaking amazing as a foil. So anyway, it has Skulk, so it can only be blocked by creatures with 0 or 1 power. Anything else cannot block it. Very interesting. Okay, negative numbers is power as well. I know somebody's going to say it. So when it deals combat damage to a player, return it to its owner's hand. Now when this card returns to hand, it becomes a spell again because it's flipped back. And you can cast it again and mill them for 13 again. So every other turn within reason, if you have enough control in mono blue, you could definitely hit them and mill them for 13. It would take almost all of your mana, but you could do it. I mean, this card single-handedly can mill somebody out. So a couple people played with this. It was really interesting. It actually was pretty decent at the pre-release. I mean, milling somebody for a mere, 40 cards or less at that point, yeah, you hit them twice, they're dead. So it's like a 3-turn win. So I just like this card. I mean, it's convoluted and it's hard to tell what it does, but once you get it, you're like, oh yeah, okay, repetitive mill, conditional, maybe they'll kill it and it'll go back to the graveyard, I don't know. But if it goes to the graveyard, it flips and you can just use the 5-cost ability again. So this is not going away, and that's why people like it. So depending upon where you look, once again, this has hit about $6 to $8, which, yeah, that's a bit. Considering it basically was like 99 cents to $1.50 pretty much everywhere. So I'm thinking, okay, you got your fraying sanity and you got that. So hit him for 26 twice, that's 52, and you win the game. So is that part of another deck, or is it part of a full-blown, just aggressive milieu deck? And I couldn't really come up with anything, really. Other than, board wipes, bounce everything back to hand, maybe life gain, and just any kind of control. That always goes along with mill, because you need to stop them. If they're running like a red rush deck, you're going to lose when you've milled about 10 cards. So there's another card that's very interesting, because I couldn't really find like a standard mill deck list online, because I'm obviously build my own decks. I don't even know where to start looking other than certain forums, and they didn't have anything. But a third card I believe has gone up in price. I just don't remember this ever being quite this expensive. I think it was around $2, but we've got Baral, Chief of Compliance. He's at about $5, a little bit more in some vendors. And that's interesting, because like I said, I don't remember him being that. So instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less, so that would be huge for casting, a mill 13. Drop it down to 3 mana instead of 4. Doesn't do anything for the ability, though. But he's a 1/3 that sits out there for 2. That's pretty damn good. And whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card if you do discard a card. Now keep in mind, another one of the hot cards right now is the 3/1 flash that kind of counters an ability. That doesn't exactly match with this, but it would be a really nice counterspell / flying blocker / ambush / perfect card. And honestly, there's other stuff like Garrus Masterpiece that could hold off the game for quite a while. And a bunch of pin down like Ice Over. That even works on vehicles. So I think Baral hitting 5, because I would definitely consider 2 or 3 of those in a deck like this. Plus a boatload of counterspells. Disallow is pretty high right now, but that's nothing new. I think I see a deck forming here. I'm thinking a lot of people are jumping on this. And I think people who are big fans of Mill haven't been able to play it since Sphinx's tutelage. And even back then, the support for it wasn't amazing. It was kind of like, get out tutelage or your deck isn't good enough. I mean, there's no like Mill 10 for 0 Jace like M14. Now, I manually looked for any prices that looked kind of out of place. I didn't really find much, but I was only looking at rares and mythics. So it is very possible the rest of the cards are uncommon or common that people are using to mill people if this is a deck and my suspicions are true. Then I got to thinking, well, what would they be running? Oh, that's pretty easy, actually. Well, there's all the Delirium support, because remember that, for the most part, says target player. So you could target yourself, but if you really wanted to, you could target the opponent. So I looked at one of my initial deck lists, and without reading every single one of these cards, just to give you an idea, oh boy. Sinister Concoction, Vessel of Paramnesia, Prized Amalgam. Actually, not Prized Amalgam. I don't know why that's on the list. Crow of Dark Tidings. Maybe Curious Homunculus. I could see that fitting in this particular deck. Mindrak Demon. Actually, that might only target yourself. Some of these are bad examples. I'm just going to get through it. Laboratory Brute, Return Centaur, Grizzled Angler, maybe. Like I said, Garrus Masterpiece, maybe. Screeching Scab, Stitchwing Scab, Wailing Ghoul, that's another one. Corpse Churn, that's not bad. That might be just you, though, I think. Dreadwaters, that's a pretty good one. Some of these might have been from Origins, by the way, because that's when I built this deck. I'm just listing off the cards that were candidates for my self-mill deck. Maybe Pieces of the Puzzle, probably not. I think that's another self-target only. So you can see there's enough cards between all those that you could really start hitting people. And then even Panharmonicon would probably go with it because it would double it again. And then it would double it if you were to cast Fraying Sanity. So, just imagine you drop in a Laboratory Brute. And let's also pretend that it doesn't say put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. Let's just pretend it's that opponent. Like I said, not all of these are the best example. This was from a self-mill deck. But, you know, you could target your opponent with a card like this, and they mill 4, then they mill 4 again because ETB, creature, trigger, okay. And then at the end of their turn, or the end of turn, they mill 8 more. That's a lot for one stupid little creature. You know, a better example is Return Centaur, because it says when it enters the battlefield, target player puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, although that was from Origin, so good luck with that. But I think between all the cards I named and spells and effects and everything, yeah, probably something in there targets the opponent. So, you know, without looking too much into it, because I think we all know I'm not going to build one of these freaking mill decks. I hate mill. I hate everything about it. I think the card support is there. The doublers are there. I think we're going to have to deal with it. And there's not exactly a Elixir of Immortality around right now. I think there's like maybe 2 cards that recycle your whole graveyard back into your hand, but I think a lot of them like hit both players or something, and they cost a ton. They're not really practical. They're definitely not Elixir of Immortality, which is just straight up gain 5 life, recycle shuffle your graveyard into your library. There's nothing that just saves you from mill. So, oh, that's going to be mighty, mighty, mighty annoying. So hopefully we don't see it. Hopefully it doesn't take off. It doesn't become popular. But I think when people saw that, they're like, yeah, let's do it. But it's kind of fragile because it's just like Sphinx's Tutelage. Without it, it just doesn't have the mill power. And if you drop the mill and put in tons of control, it mills slower. And then maybe you'll stop an onslaught with a turbo fast deck, but maybe not. Because, I mean, disallow and stuff still, you know, costs 3. We do have Essence Scatter, though, so remember that. I mean, there are some pretty fast control spells. Also, Ice Over, Containment Membrane, very, very good spells. What do you think? Do you hate mill? Do you play mill? Are you somewhere in between? Do you not want to see it? Do you want to see it? Leave a comment down in the comment section, and, I don't know, sell all your copies of Baral's and Startle Awake too if you got it. So hopefully you guys like that tip, and I will see you guys next video.